And hello, everyone. Tuesday afternoon with the Con-Versation. And believe it or not, probably October, we're going to have a new intro for this show instead of our intro for the Con Hour. So be prepared, looking for that. But today we are with Zachary Hagen. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Yeah.
And an author like yours truly, but we're going to talk a little bit more about him because I think I heard you say something about a publishing also, or small publishing.
Yeah.
But first, let's talk about your books because I know you have one coming out in less than 2 months.
Yeah, we're kind of down to the wire on it.
But without any spoilers, can you tell us a little bit about these books? Because I think this is the third or fourth one in the series.
Yeah, so the first one came out actually a year ago, and the second one came out in March. So we're going on about 2 releases a year. The Eternal Chronicles is the series, and it follows the story of Elior, a bastard prince who kind of has to figure out his place in the world. He goes from place to place. He has this idea of what family looks like, and that definition kind of evolves from as he meets new friends and goes through wins and losses in the series.
And for the series, are there going to be more books to it, or is it just going to be 3?
I have a total of 5 books planned. So the 4th one should be out in the late spring, early summer of next year. And then the 5th and final will be available holiday season of next year.
Now, as a writer, I know for me, because I have 2 books in my fantasy and I actually started a Western, and of course I do have to finish them eventually.
Mm-hmm.
But do you plan on writing a different series afterwards? Have you thought of anything about continuing?
Yeah, I have some ideas for some spin-offs, kind of within the same world, but I also have an Aladdin retelling that I'm working on kind of here and there on the side, which I'm excited about that one. That one will probably spur a series of probably some fairy tale retellings.
Oh, nice. Now, I know constantly you always have stories going in your mind.
Mm-hmm.
It's different worlds, same world, even backstories. But what gives you the inspiration for writing? What started you in your writing?
I think that writing was always something that I wanted to do. My parents had these little booklets that I'd staple together and write little stories and write pictures in, and they saved those. And so I think writing has always been something that I've wanted to do. Beyond that, I think that I get an inspiration from a lot of the reading and the experiencing stories in other forms of media as well. Lord of the Rings was a huge one for me as a kid. In addition to the Chronicles of Narnia, I think that the fantastical nature that specifically C.S. Lewis and Tolkien took with their writing was huge in developing my own style and my approach to world building.
Those are definitely 2 big names in the fantasy world.
Mm-hmm.
Now, with that being said, with your books, I know, like I said, is it more magic? Is it more dragon? Is it more?
I think there's a little bit of everything. Dragons have a pretty big role in the lore of the world. They're a huge part of the backstory and how things kind of are the way they are at the moment. Interestingly enough, though, for the most part, dragons don't really exist at the current time period in the world. So, and there's an interesting connection between dragons and sort of the main antagonists of the book, or of the series, I should say. There is a magic system, and it's tied there's a big elemental tie-in. So there's a huge dichotomy between water and fire in the books. The destruction and heat of fire, as opposed to the healing coolness of water, plays a big role in the symbolism and in the magic system as a whole.
So you would say you'd use more of the elements with the magic system.
In a way, it's not like the last Airbender where they're bending and using direct elemental magic all of the time, but it's the underlying principle behind those things that guides the two opposing magic systems.
I have to give you credit for knowing where my thoughts were going. Not many people would have caught the Airbender part of that one.
Well, I watched them growing up. It was some of the best world building and some of the best storytelling that I think I've seen done in television, just regardless of whether it's live action or cartoon. I think it's just some of the best writing out there. And so I definitely drew some inspiration for this particular series from The Last Airbender.
Yeah, nice. Now, see, I just pulled out something that probably not many people knew.
Yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed that series, and it had a huge impact on exactly how the magic system was structured.
Now, adding that with the creatures, would you say Dungeons and Dragons also? Was that a part of your life growing up?
I've
Or
never really played Dungeons and Dragons. I've seen people really enjoy it in my communities, but it was never something that really grabbed my attention. I was more on like the video game side of things with that. So for me, it was more like Final Fantasy, Kingdom Hearts, some other like fantasy role-playing games that or action role-playing games, but not really the board games as much.
so it's maybe an anime type effect to it. I mean,
Yeah, possibly. I don't necessarily think that I would qualify it as that, but I haven't. There's definitely a lot of European fantasy in there, but there's also aspects of Indian and Chinese fantasy in the way that I've structured some things. So there's like water spirits and things like that that are more prevalent in Asian fantasy and folklore than they are in Western.
very nice. That gives me a little bit of an intrigue. Now, let's talk a little bit about the publishing. You're publishing your own books, and do you publish others as well?
Yeah, so I started First Horizons Publishing the year that I published Eternity's Well, the first book in the series, largely because I wanted to make sure that I didn't have to change aspects of the story to appeal to what a publisher might decide the mass market wanted. Particularly for these books, because they were such a passion project and because they were the first ones that I was going to be putting out into the world under my name, I really wanted to make sure that they were exactly what I intended to be there and not catering to what someone in New York wanted it to look like, which ended up being probably a really good choice considering the upset that the New York publishing industry has had recently.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of editors have left. A lot of agents are working more with small indie publishers now more than ever. And so I think that in the long run, it was probably a really good choice not to necessarily go the traditional route with publishing, at least for the first set. I don't know what the future may hold for me. I don't have a problem with the way New York does things. I just really wanted to be very in control of this series.
I do have to say, being an indie, it's like I still feel that it's my story, and with traditional, they do have a tendency to like, well, we think this might be better, so change this. So I can agree with that wholeheartedly.
Yeah. And I think, I've noticed this trend with a lot of debut authors that there's so much of themselves in their first book. And because of that, I felt like if I had someone else weighing in on the content, that the message might be lost, that the purpose behind writing might not come through.
Now, that was something I read. You said each one of your books delivers a certain message.
Mm-hmm.
How do you adapt? Like, is it a message from today, but adapted into a past story? I know those are very hard to do.
It's more concept and moral. So they're sort of parables, if you will. They take enduring truths and apply them to this fantasy world in a way that I hope comes across and lets people know. I think that the core message of the series is that things get better and we're not alone in anything.
Now, if somebody wanted to get a signed copy of your books, where would they go to do that? Just through your website, or do you also do signings at different places?
I haven't been able to get a signing scheduled in person as of yet. I need to get a little bit bigger before I can do that, but I'm actually really happy that my sales have actually started to pick up. But if someone wanted to get a signed copy, I do have a contact form on my website, and I'm happy to supply those on an as requested basis for the time being. If they start getting a little bit more popular, I'll probably open up some sort of Etsy shop. And then from there, we'll see. I may end up doing a virtual signing for the release of the last book in the series next year.
That would be pretty awesome. Not many people do virtual signings anymore. Well, I think they're getting a little bit more popular, but
I've seen some other independent authors do it, like Bethany Atazada. I forget the name of her series, but she did some fairy tale retellings in a series that she did virtual signings for, and I think she had some reasonable success with them. And her readers seem to really enjoy it.
now I know you have a newsletter on there, but do you also have like a Facebook page where people can go and follow some of your stories? Do you give hints to it or anything like that?
I haven't done a whole lot with the Facebook page as of yet, but I'm thinking that I might do more on there than I even do with the newsletter. Because the newsletter is kind of hard to keep up with, but Facebook, I can update with little brief snippets every day if I need to. So the Facebook page is there. I also have a TikTok that I'm starting to gear up to get active on again. It's been a crazy summer for me, so I haven't been as purposeful with the social media aspect of this as I would like to be. We moved twice this summer. It's an interesting
Ouch.
story.
Ouch.
Yeah.
Moving during the summer just, well, it definitely doesn't cut it here. I think you're a little farther north,
I
but
actually
I know it's been very hot.
Yeah, I'm in
Everywhere.
Mississippi now, so it's
Ooh.
hot here.
Oh, Mississippi. So you do have some of that southern humidity now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I walk out of because I'm actually in my office beside my classroom right now. I walk out of my classroom it feels like a curtain of water.
Mm-hmm. Welcome to the humidity zone.
Yeah. I grew up in Texas and in Florida, so it's familiar, but oh my word, I did not realize how bad Mississippi had it until I got here.
I was told that Mississippi does have it a little bit worse. I don't know why. I haven't figured that one out. I'm from Houston, and it's
Yeah.
like that Gulf's pretty
All the tree
humid.
cover. I think it's all the tree cover because we're so Mississippi. Apparently, I was doing some research before we moved here. Has some of the most rural. It has the highest amount of rural population. So we still have more people than Wyoming, but more people live out in the country than live in our cities here.
Mm.
So we're about 30 minutes south of, I think, our third largest city, Hattiesburg. And even in Hattiesburg, which is a relatively large town, there's still so much tree cover that you don't realize how big it is until you start driving around.
Mm.
So I think it's all the trees and the fact that we're only an hour from the coast.
Well, one thing that I will give Mississippi is I love how they plant the magnolias
Mm-hmm.
along the highways. It is a pretty state, I will say that for sure.
Yeah, we've enjoyed it so far. We've actually only been here since Friday. So it's very new. They hired me at my job here literally the week before school started. So,
Mm.
and then we moved while school was in its first week. So this has been a fast start for us. It was a very, very weird string of events that led me to teaching this year.
Well, can I ask what you teach, or?
Yeah, so this is actually my first year teaching math. Previously, I was teaching English and music, but I'm teaching math this year.
Ooh, music too. Have you ever written any music, or?
Mm-hmm. Nothing that I've published, but I've written some music, and it's somewhere in my computer.
But other than the website, which I do have posted on all three of our formats, where can people find you?
So TikTok and Facebook are great places to get in touch with me. Instagram as well. And I'm gearing up some great content for that in preparation for the release of the third book this November.
Okay, yeah, that's right. November 11th, or was that 12th?
I believe it's the 11th. I know
Okay.
it's Tuesday, so whichever 11th or 12th, whichever one of those is a Tuesday.
Whichever's Tuesday, there you go. But I want to thank you for being on the show today. It was great having you, and
Thank
actually
you.
learned a lot. And guys, go check out his books because I love the covers on them, by the way.
Thank you so much. I have a great cover designer, and it's actually going to be kind of a reverse rainbow by the end of it.
Awesome. I definitely, I look forward to getting your books. But in the meantime, everyone, we will see you on Thursday with the next conversation. And like I said, I do plan on changing the intro as soon as I can. And we will see everyone, like I said, Thursday. And then on Friday at 6 p.m. will be our next con hour. Until then,